Hello and welcome to Advertisers Watching Ads. This is a weekly show where brands watch other brands' ads.
If there's a beer in a painting, it's probably likely to be a Stella.
But the question still remains, so what? If you're the oldest beer in the market, does it mean you're the best?
They've stopped short of that activation element. So it ends up just being, look what we can do with data.
My name is Tom Wallerton. I'm the founder of the creative effectiveness platform Automated Creative. And this week we are brought to you as ever by Contagious, who have helped choose the ad this week. But before we see that ad, let's meet this week's guests.
My name is Tatyana Kahl. I'm marketing director for activation and usage and Visa Europe.
Hi everyone, I'm Chappell. I head up digital platforms and investment at Mediahub across EMEA and global.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian O'Brien. I'm a senior manager in the global double equity team in Unilever.
What a panel, as ever. Very high expectations of the critique this week, but let's see this week's ad.
The origins of Stella Artois date back to 1366, to a small brewery in Leuven, Belgium. During the following years, it expanded to the whole of Europe, to what we now know is Stella Artois. We crossed our historical data with art history data and came up with a probability. First, we focused on the color of the beer and the type of glass to determine the style of the brew. Then, after establishing each painting within its creation date and geolocation, we crossed it with the brewery's current expansion. And finally, to narrow down the probability, we compared this data with the presence of Artois competitors during that time. By connecting all these variables, we could calculate that the beer being portrayed in all these paintings could in fact be an Artois.
Marks out of 5 for how amazing this is. 1, 2, 3. A 2, a 3, and a 3. Right, Tatyana, what was your first thoughts when you saw that first time?
Interesting idea for outdoor campaign. Definitely out of the box thinking. Nice kind of to bring the art into that. But then I was struggling to understand what's the business need or consumer need they're trying to address. So I did a bit of research about the campaign, and it seems that the way it originated with the idea to use the data, right? And this campaign won an award at Cannes. My understanding is that it could be a good way to differentiate the brand, to bring the attention. But what really wanted they achieve with that and what have I achieved, I kind of, from this video, I couldn't get that out.
I mean, it was a creative use of data. How that data came about, I think, could be questionable sometimes. But I think one of the things that stood out for me was the integration between digital, out of home. And I think that's always a nice extension for any campaign. I think the main thing that I really took away from it is the cultural aspect of it. And for me, it's about how they've imprinted themselves into hundreds and thousands of years of centuries. And they're saying that they were the first, essentially, and they're kind of showcasing that to their consumers and audience, that they've been around for centuries, and so that you get a bit of kudos from that.
I think it's a cute idea. It's a nice way to quite literally bring science and art together. It's bringing AI and an interesting use of it. What is in it for the consumers? What is in it? Why is this interesting? And I sort of feel like I've watched half of a case study and I'm kind of still waiting to see where they take it rather than the full story at this stage.
It felt to me halfway through that it was a video that you're watching in a museum. So from an advertising point of view, it took me back to, do I really want to be watching this? It's like I'm walking around a museum.
It's interesting if you're interested in history or more explicitly art history, but I was a bit like, where are we going with this? What's the point of all this?
I think it has a great potential to differentiate. We are the first with the history, but the question still remains, so what? If you are the oldest beer in the market, does it mean you're the best? Or why still should I prefer this one versus the other one? One thought I had, maybe they're trying to differentiate themselves versus the newly popping up craft beer and decide like, this is why we are different and that's why it's an age.
I sort of feel that this is a concept which come from a brief of work out how to do something with AI rather than a business objective or a consumer problem. It started from how do we do something to leverage data? And if I think about at Cannes, another award winner on data, something like the Cadbury concepts with the small businesses, I have a similar question there as to what's in it for the brand, but at least that offers utility to people all over the country and to consumers. This doesn't offer utility and it's not entertaining. That's why I sort of feel like it's gone halfway to building this story about heritage. And then in a beery culture, I kind of expect them to then start putting cans of Stella in every other advert, every other painting, or kind of trying to be funny somehow, but they've stopped short of that activation element. So it ends up just being, look what we can do with data, which doesn't really touch the sides for me.
It would be interesting to find out kind of what their methodology was behind the out-of-home placements that they had, because was there any art behind the audience work that they were looking at? Were they tapping into a tourist audience that were visiting museums, etc., around those areas? So it would have been good to have had some insight into that as well.
Stalking some of the channels from Stella Artois, right? So this campaign took place in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, when they took, one of the museums. And that's great. And that's exactly what I was looking like. Does it have the legs? Does it leave? And what's the continuation of that? Once you start to kind of use this as a hook, but bring it more into cultural relevance in our days with some humor or some aspects of daily life, how it brings into that, that could be fun. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any of that. So it's a good attempt. It really requires to stay, longer on this topic or stay longer with the idea using AI or data. So what does it tell us? Which of the data of today's life can make the relevance?
And none of this relies on AI. They could have done this with 6 paintings or even beyond art. They could have said it was Van Gogh's favorite beer. It was Einstein's favorite beer, blah, blah, blah. We're a brand of heritage across Europe. We're trusted by luminaries through the generations. You don't need AI for that. You could have done that with half a dozen examples.
I think it's not even about associating whether it is a Stella Artois or any other beer. I think it's positioning themselves there. If there's a beer in a painting, it's probably likely to be a Stella. So I think that's, rather than the actual numbers, is probably going to be the messaging that they're trying to land. This is kind of the first of influencer social proofing, kind of trying to build trust and authority, but they could have done it in a lot simpler and more effective way that would have been to the masses.
So what you've done to improve this?
If you want to improve it as a pitch video, there were too little results, right? They said they reached 140% on the engagement versus previous campaign. Engagement was objective. So I think you really need to say what you achieved with that. But they won already, so that worked well for them. In terms of as outdoor campaign, I would really try to bring it to the social media channels and to see what people can do with that. Throw it, on the creatives and see how they can make a modern churn with that. Yes, it's a Belgian beer with a great history that might be in there, but what it means for our days today.
There's brands that can afford to do this kind of thing, and there's brands that can't, right? But if you're a Stella that can do 6 of these activations, 12 of these activations in a 12-month period, then does it really matter if they're going to try and land this kind of European history connotation?
When you do that, though, it's because you do these things that have no link to sales activation or no link to distribution or anything, but they say something about your brand and you say the same message year after year after year in different verticals. I don't really feel this is telling me something about Stella that I recognize. It doesn't feel like it's kind of reinforcing their brand positioning. I'm not really sure what it's saying.
Would you sign off this campaign, not the video, with this campaign in its current form on the count of 3, yes or no? 1, 2, 3. Well, there you have it. Tatyana, Kat, Adrian, thank you so much. We'll see you all next week.